is an emotional escape, a sign something is eating us. When someone is in perimenopause, their emotions can go on a roller coaster. And this can often lead to people eating more than usual or not eating enough food. It is estimated that 75% of overeating is associated with emotional eating. And if this becomes a trend despite not being overweight, it's important for us to do something about it. And why? Because sooner or later, it can turn into a health issue such as cardiovascular disease in midlife. So the question is, are there ways out there for curbing your emotional eating and implementing healthy dietary behaviors as well? Well, let's find out from our speaker, who is a weight loss and emotional eating coach. Welcome to the Thrive in Perimenopause Summit. This is your wonderful host, Sonal Singhal. And I have with me Jillian Lama, who is on a mission to help you end the war with food and feel amazing in your body by losing weight with ease, even in perimenopause. Jillian is the creator of the Body You Crave Method and also runs a podcast show with the same name, Body You Crave. So welcome, Jillian.
Hi, thank you so much, Sonal.
Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, yes.
I feel that emotional eating is a very important topic, because our gut is the root of most of our problems. Mm-hmm. So definitely how we eat, how much we eat, and what we eat impacts our gut health. Mm-hmm. And which actually means, if our gut health is not good, there is going to be an imbalance in our body. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, why do we get fooled by our emotions? And despite someone having a good willpower, we tend to lose our control and eat, even whenever, we are not even hungry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So this is such a great topic to really dive into. And it has to do with our brain and how we're thinking about things, not just with our body and the hormones that are going on. So we will have a variety of fluctuations and hormonal changes as we go through perimenopause and menopause, and recognizing that our body is going to be kind of on its own roll, doing its own thing. And we now are also going to be able to look at what can I control. There are going to be some aspects where some women may want to do hormones. They may want to do different types of therapies. There may be some different supplements and things that they can take. We also want to make sure that we're looking at how we're thinking about this, because so often we look at this as like, I'm just a victim. I can't help it. And so instead of looking at what other solutions are out there, we just kind of throw in the towel, and we just think like, well, I can't do anything about it. It's just everybody goes through this. It's just harder to lose weight in your late 40s, 50s, things like that. And we just kind of resign ourselves to having a certain body shape or size. And really, we want to get clear on what is it that we're thinking that's really driving some of the other emotions or enhancing the emotions that then has us leading to eating. Because emotional eating is simply reaching for food when you're not truly hungry. And what happens here is that our brain has just learned that food creates a rapid and reliable sense of relief. So it's creating that sense of pleasure, joy, comfort, relaxation. And so anytime when we feel a negative emotion that we don't want, our brain has learned like, oh, a glass of wine will solve this. A chocolate bar will solve this. A cookie will make this better, or it'll make this task more enjoyable. So it's just a habit. And I think that's the big thing that I want to share with listeners today is it's a habit that we learned, which means that it's a habit you can unlearn, that there are steps, that there is a process. It's not just try harder to stick with your diet. It's let's really unwind and get to the root and solve what's really happening and going on.
Okay. So now I wonder, how we picked up this habit. Or in other words, I'm asking you, what is the origin of our emotional eating? How and when we got programmed to eat mindlessly?
Yeah, great question. And it can be different for everybody. Sometimes it's a habit that we learn as a kid. We might have food scarcity. If money was tight, you didn't know when you were going to eat next or what the meals would look like. Was the money for groceries going to run out too quickly? So there might be some programming around food that you picked up from a young age around, well, this food is good or bad, or you better get it while the getting's good, like get it while you can, because it might not be here tomorrow. Or if you grew up with maybe multiple siblings where it was like, oh, they would, if you had, I hear it a lot with like brothers where like, oh, if they get at the cake, like there may not be any left. So you better eat some while you can. So we just want to start to look at and think about when do you remember this habit starting? And so what's been really interesting is to kind of, for me, being able to trace it back to when my family and we moved overseas. I was about 15. I was a freshman in high school and we lived in Tbilisi, Georgia. And at the time in 2000, it felt like a third world country, right? Like we had sporadic electricity. There would be days where we wouldn't have running water. The gas would go out. We had an apartment. And so like we were very strategic with how to heat the rooms. I mean, it was a very like post-Soviet era setup. And so, and this was our first experience abroad. And I think there was a lot of culture shock. And so the way that my family kind of dealt with this was, let's go to these little kiosks, let's get a candy bar, and then we'll go watch an English movie at home. Like let's get our candy bar because that reminds us of home. And then we'll go and like watch TV or watch a show, or maybe we'll go play cards. But I can think back to even at an early age where it's like, oh, this reminds me of home. This is comforting. And this makes me feel better. And so just starting to pick up on some of those things. And then we can look at issues and things like that, where we kind of learned of like, oh, this helps me to feel comforted. This helps me relax. We can also look at diet rules and what kind of diet rules we've been following around what food is good or bad or off limits, or we really shouldn't be eating that. That often can contribute to emotional eating as well.
Mm-hmm. So actually anything can contribute to your emotional eating, even at later age also, it doesn't have to be like deep coming from your childhood, but it can
absolutely
happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah. Like, it can be older.
It's like an anchoring, of feeling good that you had that thing. And then your brain somehow remembers that it felt good.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. And that was for me. I think I noticed my habit more came about as I was in my late 20s. So it came from years of just diet rules of like, I need to exercise more and eat less. I need to not eat carbs. So there was a lot of what I was doing that was creating cravings and these food urges. But then it also became an emotional thing where I felt like I couldn't control it, where I was overeating at lunch. I would be overeating and snacking throughout the day, and then not hungry at night, but then also still eating or still thinking like, this snack will make me feel better. This will help the time go by faster. And it's just something that our brain learns. So whether it got planted as a seed, from younger years, or whether it was something that just kind of came about, my habit I didn't really notice it until like late 20s, 30-ish. Yeah.
So listening to you, I feel that, if you deprive yourself of something, actually you crave it more, and then somewhere you lose your control.
Yeah, right. Because we rely too much on our willpower, which you brought up earlier. Yeah. And that's something that like willpower is a muscle. It gets fatigued, and it's in the part of our brain called our prefrontal cortex, which is right here in the front of our brain. And so I like to think of our brains as a mullet, like the 80s hairstyle where it's like, business in the front, party in the back. So it's short in the front. It's long in the back. One of those like kind of hairstyles you might see occasionally today. But this is where our thinking brain is housed. Our habit brain is in the back, and the habit brain is what runs the show. Typically, it does 95% of our thinking and actions. It's like so much of our brain is designed to save energy and to be efficient. So it wants to do everything from the habit brain. It stores it instead of using our thinking brain. Our thinking brain is responsible for language, logic, problem solving, analysis. And that's also where your willpower is housed. And so if you're using your brain a lot during the day, we can have like mentally exhausting days where we've been thinking and problem solving, and maybe we feel stressed or overwhelmed, and we've just been using more of that part of our brain. It's already fatiguing the willpower. Even if we haven't used the willpower, just using that part of our brain fatigues it. And then the willpower itself can get fatigued. It's like we can say no and no and no up until a certain point, and then you're like, I just can't keep saying no, or I don't want to. I don't have the mental space or energy to keep saying no. It's like it just gets worn down. And that's where we want to be aware of, how do we not need to use willpower now? How can we still, and it doesn't mean that we just say yes to everything in the moment, because that can be emotional eating, but we want to look at, how can I say no where it doesn't require willpower? how do I say no where it feels light and easy and relaxed?
Mhm.
And for most people, that's a very foreign concept. If anybody is like me as like a chronic dieter, kind of how I was, it was like saying no. I needed willpower. I needed to just white knuckle and resist. So it's a lot of it is transforming our relationship with food. That's always going to be the first step. And then we can look at now the emotional eating aspects, but we have to create that healthy relationship with food to begin with.
Mhm. So Jillian, how do we know, like, how can we make sure that we are really hungry or not?
Yes, great question. So everybody has different hunger signals in their own bodies. Some people might yawn. Some people might feel kind of fatigued or like just low energy. Some people get growling and rumbling in their stomach. For some people, it might be different times of the year, different times in their cycle of the month, different times of just kind of what they notice with different meals. So really the key is just to listen to what is your body telling you? What are your true hunger signals? And I know for me, if I drink 8 ounces of water and I wait 15 minutes and then I'm not hungry, that's not real hunger. I may have actually been thirsty. It might have been like faux hunger. It's like, it's really about kind of learning what our body response is. The other like habit that we can start to implement is asking yourself, am I hungry? And just creating a pause. So much of our emotional eating habit can be on autopilot, where it just feels very automatic. You walk by the candy dish and you grab it. You walk by something that's on the counter and you grab it without really consciously thinking about it. And so it's like when we can pause and ask ourselves, oh, am I hungry? Now it gives us a time to just kind of tune into our bodies and really listen, like, okay, am I really hungry here? Yes or no. And then if you're not hungry, then you can just still decide to eat, right? There's no shame in still choosing to eat, but now we just want to be very conscious of, okay, I realize I'm eating, I'm not hungry, which means there's something else going on. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? How has your day been? And it doesn't even have to be that you were, like you had a fight with your spouse or something. It doesn't have to be like there's some kind of instant trigger that has you reaching for food. It could be, it was a long day. It was a long week. I worked really hard. It's been stressful. That's what we want to start to pick up on is how are we talking to ourselves long-term, not just in the moment.
Or you feel overwhelmed by
Yes.
so many things, and before, so you feel fatigued.
Yeah.
Just seeing that much of amount of work you need to do, you feel fatigued, and then you feel like, okay, I'm hungry and let's eat something salty or sugary.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it's not even I'm hungry. It might just be like, oh, well, let me grab a snack. This will help.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I've noticed a lot with women. And, and this is just such a great check-in. I think for many women, we use eating as a justification to be able to take a break. So it's, I'm going to take a break for lunch. And so I'm eating. I'm going to take a break for the snack. And I'm now eating. It's like, it's an excuse now for me to take a break when really I might just want to sit down and like watch a show for 10 minutes. I might just want to take a break and like go walk around the building for a little bit, right? Like I need to really look at how much am I trying to be productive? How much of my worth and value am I defining by how many actions and items on my to-do list that I get done versus who I am as a woman? This is a key thing. I think our society as a whole is very hyper aware and focused on how do I be as efficient and productive as possible, to where we now beat ourselves up for wanting a break, for not being able to go full steam 100% 7 days a week or even 5 days a week. Like we just need to get honest and clear about, can I even take a break? What is it that I really need in this moment? And it might be that you're thinking like, oh, well, of course I need the chocolate, but it's like, okay, if I didn't need the chocolate, what else do I really need? And so often it's relaxation. It's a break. It's time. It's like, might just be a few moments by yourself. And doing things that relax you, not doing things that Jillian says, like not just doing what I'm telling you to do. It's like, what relaxes you?
Yeah. For example, somebody can go for dancing, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes like that.
Yeah.
Or just take a stroll in garden.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So Jillian, I see that, you look perfect in shape, I take it as a compliment. And
yeah, thank you.
I wonder, like, how do you stay fit and maintain a healthy body weight?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So, my son is a year and a half. I got pregnant with him in early 2020 and I love him to pieces. There was a time when I was really afraid of getting pregnant and gaining weight and being able to lose it again later. There was a lot of body image struggles that I had growing up and just a lot of challenges with food. And so I finally got to the place where I felt comfortable to where when I was pregnant, I wasn't using that as an excuse to eat my face off and eat whatever I want. You know, I was very mindful and then just aware of what I was eating and was I really hungry? What does the baby need? You know, and it's not a cupcake. But I gained 25 pounds and then I lost it. And it took probably a full year for my body composition to go back to normal. And that is 100% normal. Like we need to give ourselves time for our bodies to not just lose the weight, but for the composition to like go back to where to get our bodies back in line and in shape. So some of the biggest things that I do is I drink water. Like that is a huge thing. It's so often overlooked. I got my giant water bottle right here that you'll probably see me sipping on, but it's like the water, it helps our bodies to like just do the necessary functions. And when our bodies are dehydrated, it's not going to want to put time and energy in towards weight loss. It's like we need our bodies functioning properly. We also want to be drinking water so that we're not mistaking thirst for hunger. And now we're eating, trying to get the water out of the food. So that's another piece. Sleep is a really important one, really looking at, can you give yourself 7 to 9 hours of sleep every single night? Right? Like, again, we all know sleep is important, but we don't think about it from the perspective of you will burn more fat sleeping than you will in a 1-hour gym session for most women. And I'm not saying that exercise is bad. I'm not saying we just sit on the couch now, but we just need to be really aware of how important sleep is. And when we prioritize sleep and we prioritize water, that alone will help reduce cravings, reduce food urges, and you're going to be able to lose weight just with those two things. So I think really being aware and conscious of these basics is like just the foundation. And then when we can start to layer on some like food pieces, I'm not as strict, I wouldn't say I'm not strict at all with what I can and can't eat. It's like everything is available and on the table. I really look at, am I hungry? And I wait for true physical hunger. And then I stop at satisfied. And that has been the work that I have been doing is like, can I stop at satisfied and not overeat? Can I really wait for hunger? Or am I snacking? And I'm procrastinating by getting a snack. Am I going to the pantry to avoid doing another task? Right? I can start to tune into where am I using food now as that coping mechanism instead of looking at food solves hunger. It doesn't solve my emotions. And so those are like the key things of like, if you just start tuning into your body and really building trust with it, that's often for women who are like me, who may be chronic dieters, trusting your body instead of trusting calorie points, macros, how many carbs or fat points you're eating. Like instead of trusting these outside resources and like formulas, really trusting your own body. Are you truly hungry? There's nothing wrong with eating, right? Like, but let's eat when we're hungry and let's stop at satisfied. And it's like these simple things, this is what we want to do. And then we can start to listen for all the permission giving thoughts to keep eating. Things like, this won't taste good tomorrow. You should probably finish it today. Or you paid a lot of money for that. You better eat it all, better get your money's worth. Or it might be, they made you this cake. It's your birthday, or it's somebody else's anniversary and they're celebrating, like you should eat some cake too, right? We have some pressure on ourselves to follow these rules, to not hurt people's feelings, to make sure we do these things. And so just being aware of these permission giving thoughts, or even like, screw it, it's Wednesday, I already blew my diet, I'll start again tomorrow, or I'll start again next week. And so we throw away so much opportunity when we can look at, what's my next best step? No matter what. Like, it's always like, how do I get right back on track? What's the next best step that I can take? And stop thinking that we've blown it. We need to start over next week or next month or in the new year, right? We need to stop these feast and famine cycles around food and weight loss. And that's going to create so much more sustainability, because now you have a life that you love. You're not trying to punish yourself in the gym or take away all these foods that you love, because that's only going to lead to binging and overeating later.
Excellent. So, now because this summit is focused on
Mhm.
perimenopausal women, and as I said earlier, that we during this phase, some of the women, not all, but some of
Mhm.
the women, their emotions, they go on roller coaster.
Mhm.
So even though they had been like they have been mindful of what they eat, but
Mhm.
because of their emotions, the
Mhm.
imbalance in emotions, they cannot control.
Mhm.
And so, do you think that perimenopause affect our eating habits?
Yes. Yes, I think it will, but it does the more conscious and aware you are of it, the more control you're going to have. So
Mhm.
just because it impacts doesn't mean that you are helpless to change the situation. We can start to look at, how do I get my hormones under control? Like, how do I feel better in my body? How do I manage this phase of life in a way that feels good for me and it feels in line with what your values are, right? This is what it needs to be, is how do I manage my emotions now? And how do I look at where I'm making my emotions worse, or how I'm making my emotional eating worse by how I'm thinking about it? So this is where we just want to look at our thoughts, and really, how much power are we given to our thoughts that are driving and increasing the emotions? So you might find that if like your base level is like right here, and then with perimenopause, maybe you're a little more emotional, or you're maybe different emotions at different times. So now we're up here, but now you have a lot of thoughts about your emotions and how emotional you are. And now your thoughts are like increasing it. They're heightening it. I don't want to say making it worse, because your emotions aren't bad, but they're making them more extreme. So
Mhm.
that's where we can start to look at normalizing this. It's normal that I feel this way. I realize I'm feeling very irritated right now because my husband left his socks in the middle of the floor and I've asked him 10,000 times not to, right? We can look at what's triggering us and look at where, like, we can breathe through it and we can not make it such a problem. We can also have a time where we maybe have some emotions. Maybe we yell, we cry, we feel like we're at this very heightened state, and we can take some time to ourselves just to breathe and to think through, like, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? And really look at, what are all my thoughts that are fueling this emotion and that are keeping it going?
Mhm.
So there's a couple different angles with perimenopause that we want to look at things from. There's the actual hormone management piece, there's our thoughts about it, and then there's the food. And then we can look at, okay, now, even when I am emotional, how can I just recognize that food is not going to solve this? Food really isn't going to make this any better. Food
Mhm.
might be making it worse. So that's where we can start to look at.
So, Jillian, just for like audience's information, what could be the consequences of emotional eating in perimenopausal phase?
Yeah. So a lot of times emotional eating leads to weight can lead to weight gain. It can also lead to weight maintenance when you're trying to lose weight. And so you end up maintaining. And what happens is, often we can follow diet rules like throughout the day. And then we get to like in the afternoon, late at night, and we feel like we don't have that willpower anymore. So then we give in, maybe we're emotionally eating, and then we feel frustrated. Then we
Mhm.
beat ourselves up. And so it's not just the physical things that we can gain. We can gain the physical weight, but it's also the mental weight that we gain, the weight of feeling like we're not good enough. Our bodies aren't pretty enough. We should look a different way.
Mhm.
Um, it's the weight of the shame, the regret, the beating yourself up for what you ate, or for feeling like your marriage is maybe not in a good place, or you're not sure what you're doing with your life once the kids go off to college, or have their own jobs. So it's really looking at everything holistically from your whole entire life. Like, this is why I consider myself a life coach. I'm coaching on all areas of life, because we have emotions because of all areas, in all areas, and things
Everything
that are
is
going to drive us to
interrelated,
eat.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you are doing amazing job.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
So, Jillian, what is your approach to help your client break the vicious pattern of emotional eating?
Yeah.
I'm
So,
sure there are many steps, So, how?
yeah. Yeah. So just kind of as like a brief overview,
Mhm.
when it comes to emotional eating. So the first step is always going to be, can we create a healthy relationship with all food?
Mhm.
It's really about getting those basics down. Healthy relationship with food, with your body, with exercise. Like, how can we use movement to feel good in our bodies instead of to try to burn off more calories? That's really what we want to do, is like end the war with food is how I call it. It's like, let's end this war. Let's make peace with it. And that means that no food is good or bad. It's all good. It's all it's all available. Because when I know that I can eat ice cream tonight and tomorrow night and the next night and the next night, like, I don't need to binge on it tonight. I don't need to overeat it tonight because I'm thinking, oh, I'm being really bad, so I might as well just be bad today and I'll get right on the horse tomorrow. Tomorrow will be perfect. Tomorrow I can do this. It's this like perfectionist fantasy that we have. So it's really breaking through a lot of these diet rules that we've held on to for a long time. That's the starting point. From there, we can go on to, okay, now when are you eating and you're not really hungry? When are you eating beyond the point of being satisfied? So as we start to dive into that and really understand, okay, what are the habits? What are the patterns here? What am I feeling in these moments? What am I thinking? We can now start to pinpoint, oh, I know if I'm feeling stressed, I'm going to be reaching for food. It's like we can preempt it. And then once we notice it when it's happening in the moment, we can start to look at, all right, how do I want to do things differently? What can I set up for myself? And this is where I work with individuals, and it's very tailored to what is your life? What are your habits? There's no like one size fits all. It's like the same method, but everybody's going to have a different approach to it. So for me, it's like, there's always a pause. I always have a pause. Like let's see, it was a couple months ago. We had some friends over on the weekend, and the entire day on Saturday, it was a great day, but the entire day I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. My husband's going out of town next week. I don't know how I'm going to do everything. I've got so much to do. I don't have enough time. And I just kind of had this subtle story of there's not enough time. And I noticed I really wanted ice cream then at the end of the night. And so now I'm at a point, I have worksheets that I give clients that can walk them through this process. Now I'm at a point where I do this in my head and it comes very naturally. So it's something where you don't need the worksheets forever, but it helps as you get started.
Yeah,
but
again,
for
it's
me,
like
then
reprogramming your mind.
yes, exactly. And so it was, I put the baby to bed and I ate, I was satisfied. I was maybe even a little full. Like I really did not need ice cream, but I really wanted it. So I went to take a shower and I just gave myself a couple of minutes, like, okay, what am I feeling right now? Why do I really want the ice cream? And within like 30 seconds, I was like, oh, of course I want the ice cream. I've been telling myself all day how I don't have any time and I have so much to do, when really and that to me felt stressful and overwhelming. And so now I can see, okay. So now I can ask myself, what do I really need in this moment instead? And I needed sleep. I was tired. So even though we had guests and it was only like 9 o'clock, I went downstairs and I told them, I love you guys, but I need to go to bed. Like I need to, like, this is what I can do for myself. I'm not going to try and stay up late. I don't need the ice cream. I'm going to make some tea and I'm going to go lay down. And that was the best decision that I could have made for myself in the moment. And so it's getting to a point, it's like figuring out for you what these habits look like, and being able to now say no from a place of self-love and integrity. It was easy for me to say no to the ice cream because I knew I'm not hungry. And I know that this is just me being tired and wanting to try to stay up. So I can give myself what I really need in this moment and not be afraid that my friends are going to be offended, that they're going to think I'm a bad host, that I'm missing out on all the fun times, right? Like this is where our thoughts come into play. This is such an important piece, is like, we have to be conscious of what we're thinking and telling ourselves, because that's what we need to honor and look at. How do I give myself what I need? Which is not selfish. It's taking care of yourself. It's self-care.
So, somewhere, we have understood that emotional eating is not good for us. So if somebody stops emotional eating, what is the incentive? What are the benefits of stopping emotional eating?
So most of my clients will lose weight. Like they lose weight so much faster. They feel better in their bodies. They don't feel so tired and sluggish and heavy. They often will feel more connected and intimate and want to have more intimacy with their partner or their spouse. Just because when you are emotionally eating or overeating, it's like a lot of times we turn to that at the end of the night. And then if you feel kind of full or bloated or uncomfortable, it's like, you don't want sexy time. Like nobody wants that. So they can really improve the intimacy in their relationships. They have more energy the next day. They don't feel so groggy. They're not still full the next morning to where they're like, ugh, food, it feels kind of like repulsive. They talk so much better to themselves. It's that mental weight that gets lifted. It's the emotional weight that gets lifted. It's really learning how to solve their emotions and how to allow any emotion without needing food, knowing that it's okay to have a negative emotion and that nothing has gone wrong. And they don't have to try to fix it. They don't have to be positive all the time. They don't even have to be positive like 70% of the time. Life is going to be 50-50. And if we can make that our benchmark of like 50% of the time, I'm going to have a negative emotion, the more we can come to terms with that and recognize like, oh, the more we can allow it, because it's these subtle emotions like regret or disappointment or rejection, things that it doesn't always have to be depression or anger or, like deep sadness or grief. Like it doesn't have to be so big and overwhelming. It can be these subtle things. It's like the more willing I am to feel disappointed, the more willing I am to feel rejected, it's like the better I am at handling everything in life. The more willing I am to take different actions, to try something new, to believe more in myself. And that's a big piece. I think the self-trust and the self-confidence that comes from this is massive. The freedom that comes around food and not obsessing about what you can and can't eat or how many calories or points it is. There's such a transformation here.
Wow. So, Jillian, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend any food or no? I mean, specific type of diet or food?
So no, the only time I would give people a recommendation on their diet and the food is if there are any diagnosed conditions, things like an autoimmune disease, like hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, anything related to like leaky gut syndrome, diabetes or pre-diabetes, like anything along those lines, I give food recommendations for. Outside of that, it's more of what do you actually enjoy eating? Because what I like to eat is not going to be what you like to eat, and that's okay. You can lose weight just as easily as I can eating the foods that you love. And when you give yourself that permission now, that's when you're going to see everything open up and everything change. Like that's when we can really create the life that we crave. So I don't give specific food recommendations. I do recommend some different supplements to different people. It just depends on what's going on and what your challenges and obstacles are.
So thank you, Jillian, for explaining and educating us on emotional eating. I mean, I have learned a lot by talking to you on this very, very, very common unconscious healthy pattern. It's affecting not only women. I think mostly women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, some men as well, but many women. Yeah. Yeah.
I think again, because, because of our mood swings.
Yeah.
Hormones, the way our body is made. So,
yeah.
Now time for the VIP package offer. So I wonder what you are offering to our VIP audience.
Yes. So it's my course called Conquer Your Cravings. And so in this course, I teach you about the difference between cravings and food urges, how we can really take control and manage our cravings, and then what the difference is with food urges and how do we solve these. And the reason why I differentiate the two is because we're going to solve for each one differently. That's why it's important to understand, is this a true craving? Is this just more of this urgent desire for food? And so that really can bring so much freedom, and it's going to help start the ball rolling when it comes to things like emotional eating. So this is like a foundation. Anytime that you have an urge, so you're typically not going to be hungry, and you're going to want something that's often like high fat, high calorie, maybe a snack food, dessert. It's like often it's those sweet treats. It's the food that often was off limits, or, like we shouldn't be eating. It was things, ideas around that. So it gives you like a framework now for how do you handle these urges? How can you say no from a place of love? And it's very similar to how we would solve for emotional eating. So if this is something that you feel like has been just a sticking point for you, this will be a huge, huge foundation to really be able to take some proactive work on this.
Sounds awesome. And I feel that this is very useful for women of any age, not only for perimenopausal.
Yes.
And I'm already sure, that this package is in high demand. So if you would like to check the details of what Jillian is offering as part of Summit's VIP package, please click the link below this video. And thank you so much, Jillian, for joining us, and let's stay in touch.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.